The essential point is this: announcing the existence of extraterrestrial life isn't a problem, but acknowledging the existence of a cover-up is. When people ask me if, or when, I think disclosure will occur, I often reply by saying that it depends on what there is to disclose. The problem is that many people in the UFO community think in terms of absolutes. An alien spacecraft crashed at Roswell in 1947 and the U.S. government has kept this secret for nearly 70 years. Therefore there's a tangible thing that can be revealed. Fair enough. But what if the reality is different, and much less clear-cut? Retired U.S. Army Colonel John Alexander previously claimed that disclosure has happened, while Rendlesham Forest UFO incident witness John Burroughs has said that confirmation trumps disclosure. Such statements might seem absurd, but in fact, they show an astute grasp of the true situation. Let's run through some scenarios. Suppose that a major world government avoided something like the cliched "my fellow Americans, people of the world, we are not alone" statement, but decided instead to say something like this: that UAP unidentified aerial phenomena exist is indisputable. Credited with the ability to hover, land, take off, accelerate to exceptional velocities and vanish, they can reportedly alter their direction of flight suddenly and clearly exhibit aerodynamic characteristics well beyond those of any known aircraft or missile, either manned or unmanned. Now suppose that this same major world government decided to declassify and release its archive of UFO files, and suppose it transpired that some of this material had been highly classified. Then suppose that to publicize the release of these files, one of the officials who had been responsible for UFO policy and investigations gave literally hundreds of mainstream TV, radio, newspaper and magazine interviews stating that consistently, over several decades, a proportion of UFO sightings had defied any conventional explanation. Additionally, suppose that these positive statements about UFOs were used in the New York Times, Time magazine, ABC, the BBC and most major media outlets all around the world. Finally, suppose that these quotes included statements like these ones: "These are the real-life X-Files." Most UFO sightings had conventional explanations, but a small percentage remained unexplained. These included cases where UFOs were seen by police officers, chased by pilots and tracked on radar. When looking at all this material, it is clear that whatever you believe about UFOs, there are serious defense, national security and air safety issues. Does all this sound too good to be true? Well, here's the thing, it is true. All this has already happened. That UAP exist is indisputable quote comes from the executive summary of the final report of Project Condign, the UK government intelligence study on UFOs that was classified secret UK eyes only. The other quotes come from some of the media interviews that I've given in recent years, as part of the ongoing project to declassify and release the UK government's UFO files. I worked on these files for years and wrote many of them, and, by virtue of being the media's go-to guy on this story, I'm now the public face of the ongoing project to release these files. This may not be disclosure in the sense that some people in the UFO community mean, but it is disclosure nonetheless. This is one of the reasons why I coined the phrase disclosure with a little d, not with a big D. What do I mean by this? It's a reality check. No government is going to admit that it's been lying to the public for decades on this issue, or indeed on any issue. Similarly, no government is going to say something like this: "We occasionally encounter unidentified craft in our airspace. They consistently outperform our best fighter jets, sometimes showing up on radar and sometimes not. We don't know what they are." Such a statement would be untenable, because it would be tantamount to an admission that we'd lost control of our airspace. Irrespective of whether one believes that UFOs are extraterrestrial spacecraft, foreign military spy planes or drones, or some currently unknown atmospheric phenomenon, no government or air force would make such a statement. Ignorance and impotence are the polar opposites of the self-image that any government tries to project, so such a statement could never be made. However, it is possible to say pretty much the same thing, using less alarmist language, and phrases that are sufficiently vague so as to allow for multiple interpretations. So what one ends up with is a tacit admission that there's something more to the UFO phenomenon than misidentifications, hoaxes and delusions, but the door is left open as to whether such sightings are triggered by craft or phenomena. Expressions such as "we can't rule out any possibilities" or "we remain open-minded" are seen as positives, not negatives. It all comes down to the language that's used. So reread Project Contine's final report, and reread my various media statements about the release of the mob UFO files, and you'll see that this isn't a hypothetical scenario. All of this has already happened.